I'd like to announce first that the official release date for Hollywood is November 14th, and our world tour begins October 27th in Minneapolis. Disposable Teens is the first single. Since so many people had questions regarding the album itself, I'll start with that. Hollywood, when taken on its own, is a record about revolution. It's a record dealing with the evolution of man and where violence comes from. When incorporated with the other two albums before it, it's more of an autobiographical story. After I finished writing Antichrist Superstar, I painted an ending, and I knew that there was more to tell. But the strange thing was that the story itself, since it was my own, began writing me. So I was in a position where I had projected myself as something that I am today, and I knew what it would take to get there, and I knew what I'd have to do to myself to make that transformation, but I still had to live it rather than just tell it. So I began by going backwards. And Hollywood itself deals a lot with growing up, and it deals a lot with relating to the way I think a lot of people feel today in America, trying to exist in this culture that makes you feel worthless. And I feel like if you treat somebody like they're worthless, they're going to treat others with no value as well. The story, if I were to put it in a simple paragraph or two, is my story, but I chose to tell with metaphors. Hollywood itself is a name and a metaphor I created for the perfect world, or the ideal that everybody tries to hold up as what we all should be. And the story is about spending your whole life trying to fit into that world that doesn't want you, and being knocked down over and over again, and just fighting and fighting until you finally get there. And when you get there, you realize that everyone around you are the same people that kept you down in the first place. So that causes a resentment, and in this case that resentment became a revolution. And with anyone who starts a revolution, there's always an idealism that you can change the world. And rather than changing Hollywood or the rest of the world around me, that revolution became turned inside out, really, and it ended up being another product, and it ended up being everything that I was fighting against. And the only thing that you can do at that point is to destroy what you've become. And that's the story that I saw beginning with Antichrist Superstar as a story that I ended up living, and that goes through Mechanical Animals and now back to the beginning with Hollywood. The name Hollywood itself, most people would assume is as simple as a take on Hollywood, and because entertainment is being attacked so much now, it was a point of me to discuss and think about where violence really comes from. On a deeper meaning of Hollywood, it's the irony that Christ was crucified on wood from the tree of knowledge. And I think that says a lot about how far we've come, and at the same time how little we've accomplished. And there were several people that I thought about when looking for an answer and looking for examples of why we behave the way we do. And the first was Christ. And the story that I told you earlier about revolution could easily be the same story of Jesus, because he had a lot of dangerous ideas that people were afraid of. And I'm sure in his lifetime he never imagined he would be a piece of merchandise to wear around your neck or to hang on a wall. And he ultimately sacrificed himself to put an end to it. Throughout the years I've always felt like I wanted to disbelieve that story, but instead, when writing this record, I thought it would be more interesting and open-minded to believe it on my own terms. So I think in some ways Christ really represents the first celebrity, the first rock star, and that idea of martyrdom was passed along. I think the second time it was picked up in such a dramatic way was with Kennedy, and people want to blame films for being violent, and I don't think there's anything more shocking than I've ever seen growing up than the Zapruder film. And I think because of how it affected the world and how many people were watching when it happened, Kennedy became the second Christ in a way. The third example was on more of a musical level, and that was of John Lennon. And it particularly pertains to a song on our record called Lamb of God, where I referenced Lennon and the fact that he wrote a song on Revolver called All Across the Universe, and he sang Nothing's Going to Change My World, and Mark David Chapman came along and proved him very wrong, and that was always something growing up that was very sad and tragic to me, and something that I always identified with. And that brought me into more of an obsession about the year I was born, 69, because I started to see parallels between the way the 90s ended and the way the 60s ended, because we're in such a cultural explosion now. And here with the internet, the fact that I can talk to you right now and nobody's censoring or editing my ideas, it's a very powerful time in history, and it's one that is remains to be seen what we do with that power. But looking to 69 and how things ended, I became quite obsessed with the White Album and with the Stones, because this house here where I recorded the album in, the Stones lived here when they wrote Let It Bleed, and that album became the main focus of what they performed at Altamont, which ended in a very tragic, similar case as Woodstock 99. And I think the Manson murders, which were strongly associated with the Beatles because of Helter Skelter being written on the wall, were equally exploited in the same way that Columbine was last year by the media. So I think that there was some strong parallels, and the fact that the Stones and the Beatles, and particularly the White Album, were the first pieces of music to be blamed and associated with violence, it became something that I was attracted to and something that greatly inspired the recording of Hollywood. So all of these things were a strong influence when making this record, and I knew that it was important for me to take the time and respond in an artistic way rather than feeding into the media that was creating the entire problem to begin with. So for the rest of the album, I'd rather leave it up to the listener, and I'd like you all to make your own conclusions. The story that ties the three records together is told in greater detail with specific characters, and the metaphors are made into more dramatic events in my novel Hollywood that's going to be out at the beginning of the year. And I wanted the record to exist on its own, and when you read the book, it takes on a new life, but they're not tied down to each other in a burdensome or self-indulgent way. So hopefully that answers most of your questions about the album. Now if I can address specific ones that I managed to pick out from all of the dedicated BBS users. There's a question, there's several questions if there was going to be a Nine Inch Nails Marilyn Manson tour. That's not going to happen. A lot of people wanted to know what I thought about demystifying the devil. I wasn't bothered by it. I was just bored by it. I thought that if they were going to demystify me, they could have done a much better job. I didn't want to sit around and listen to a bunch of people who claimed they knew me for 2 hours. Kalika was very persistent in asking about Scott Protesky and Zim Zum and why I have harsh feelings towards them. I don't feel like I still am bothered by their behavior, but anytime someone sues you, you're not going to want to give them flowers for it. It's not a very pleasant experience. But I'm waiting anxiously and without any judgment for whatever music they're going to create. If they were such an important part of Marilyn Manson, they've had a lot of time to start their own band, and the opportunity of being associated with Marilyn Manson gives them, a really strong foot in the door, but I haven't really seen anything from them yet, so I'd like them to, step up to the plate and make music, like I've continued to do, but I wish them no harm. I hope the best for them, A lot of people wanted to know about the fan gallery. That's something that we're trying to put together in a way that it respects and showcases the things that you guys have been creating in a proper format. So, hopefully that'll be done soon enough. I appreciate your patience for it. A lot of people want to know about Rage Against the Machine, what my opinion of them was. I don't always agree with their politics, but at the same time, I respect them for being one of the few protest bands of this era, and I like their music, and I like them, so I wish them, great success. Adonai wanted to know about Working Class Hero. That was a song that we recorded while we were going between the Houdini Mansion and Death Valley. It was done acoustically, and it'll be a B-side for Disposable Teens. Habit Man wanted to know about the election, what my opinion of that was. I'm sitting back and watching it with great entertainment because there's a lot of people talking about things they don't believe in, a lot of people pretending like they care about the welfare of America's youth, whatever that is. And I think it's, as always, as it was 10 years ago when I started the band, it's really sad that they pretend to care about something as part of their platform, and they put down artists and people like myself who genuinely care, because when it comes right down to it, I create my music for people to listen to, and those people are the ones that they're pretending to protect, and those people deserve to have an opinion and deserve to have the choice to listen to things. So I don't think it matters who wins, because they both hate me, and I don't think either one of them are going to do anything about it, so there's no concern on my part. Y2 Matt in Earthbound asked about my favorite books. I read a very interesting book called The Psychopath's Handbook. I quite liked Invisible Monsters by Chuck Palahniuk. A book that was very inspirational in alchemy and researching things for this record was The Secret Doctrine of H.P. Blavatsky. It's sort of esoteric, but if you find your own meaning in it, which I'm not going to bother trying to point out to you because it's something for you to discover, it can be a good book. Omega 11 wanted to know about Trent and I, and had the perception that it was more of a one-sided argument on my part. I think that's a great misconception, because my side of the argument was more public because I was on tour, I wrote a book and things like that. That's not to say that it wasn't equally distributed between the two of us, and that was part of us becoming friends again, was putting the past behind us and admitting that we both were wrong. Reborn Antichrist wanted to know if I went to high school prom. No, I didn't. Nobody wanted to go with me, and I probably wouldn't have went even if someone did, because I don't like dancing and smiling and all the things that go on proms. But they can be fun, I guess, if you want to do that. So. Someone named Skin wanted to know about the LA fans. That's a very good question. I'm very in debt to you for being patient about the cancellations and everything that happened in LA. And this week, in fact, there's going to be a special opportunity that we're trying to make for the LA fans that is related to our Disposable Teens video. So if you check here in the next day or two, you're going to see something that hopefully will make everyone happy. Strung out, and probably everybody in America in the media wants to know my opinion on violence. I think that Hollywood provides that opinion. But if I need to go into it deeper, I would say that nothing I've done, including this album, encourages violence any more than the things that I grew up inspired by. If someone were to say Marilyn Manson made my children act the way they do, then that would be as ignorant and easy for me to say that everything that I create is influenced by reading the Bible, watching your media, and growing up in your world that made me feel worthless. So whatever I do is inspired by you, and whatever your kids do is inspired by me. So who do you really want to point the finger at? You got to turn around and look at yourself, because it's your world that I grew up in. Ishtar and a lot of other people want to know about the tarot cards and my paintings. As I said before, the tarot cards play an important role in making this record. A lot of the symbolism in the tarot comes up in the songs, and I recreated the tarot with photography, and a lot of those cards appear in the CD itself. As far as my paintings go, that's something that I've always done in my spare time to try and have another creative outlet. Since everybody is interested in it, I'll try and show as many of those as I can here on the site, and eventually, if I have the opportunity, I'll put a show together, where people can buy those if that's what they want to do, or if they just want to look at them. The last question was from a lot of people, especially someone named Kinder Meat, wanted to know about the VMAs, why I didn't attend, what my opinion was. There wasn't really anything this year that I could say that I had a reason to believe in or have a purpose for showing up. I didn't make any videos this year. Last year my video was pulled from MTV because of Columbine. There wasn't much for me to support other than the fact that Eminem has achieved such a great success. And I chose to work with him because the fact that someone like him has the balls to do what they do helps all of us. And what people need to look beyond is whether you disagree or agree with his opinions. The fact that he's allowed to have his opinion is important for everyone. And that's my feelings towards him. I like what he does, and I like the fact that he's allowed to do it. That doesn't mean I always agree with him, but I think it's important that people like him and people like myself are able to say what they think. And I think that it's important that you say what you think as well, and hopefully this site and the rest of the internet gives you that opportunity. So the rest of the band sends their wishes. We'll see you very soon on tour, and I hope that this site becomes a place where both you and I can say what we feel.